My boyfriend said something disgusting during intimacy, making me realize he was cheating with someone very close to me. Hello Reddit. I need some perspective, maybe validation, I do not know. My name is Chloe, I am 28 years old, and until recently I was living with my boyfriend Mark, who is 30. We have been together for 5 years, met shortly after college through mutual friends, and for the most part things felt pretty solid. We built a comfortable life, shared finances to some extent, talked about marriage, the whole package. At least that is what I thought. Some friends might recognize parts of this story, but I have changed some identifying details for privacy, obviously. The last 6 months or so, things started feeling a bit strange. Not drastically bad, just subtly off. Mark became more distant, often glued to his phone with this secretive little smile I hadn't seen before. He started working late more often, sometimes coming home smelling faintly of perfume that was definitely not mine. When I asked about it, he would brush it off, saying it was probably from a coworker or someone he bumped into. His explanations always seemed plausible enough on the surface, and honestly, I wanted to believe him. Who wants to think their partner of 5 years is sneaking around? I chalked it up to work stress, maybe a midlife crisis hitting early, I do not know. I tried to be understanding, supportive even. I suggested we take a vacation, spend more quality time together, maybe try couples counseling if he felt stressed. He always declined, saying things were fine, that I was overthinking it. Classic, right? The real alarm bells, the ones I absolutely could not ignore anymore, started ringing in the bedroom. Our intimacy, which used to be passionate and connecting, became infrequent and mechanical. It felt like he was just going through the motions, often seeming distracted or impatient. I tried talking to him about it, expressing my feelings of disconnect, but he would get defensive or shut down, saying he was just tired or stressed from work. It made me feel insecure, unattractive, like I was doing something wrong. I doubled down on trying to be appealing, tried initiating more, suggesting new things, but nothing seemed to rekindle that spark from his end. It was heartbreaking, chipping away at my self-esteem day by day. Then came the night that changed everything. It was one of those rare occasions where he actually initiated intimacy. I was hopeful, thinking maybe things were getting back on track, but it felt forced, cold. And then, right in the middle of it, he mumbled something under his breath. At first I thought I misheard him, but the look on his face, a flicker of panic followed by annoyance when he realized I heard, confirmed it. He had said a name, not my name. He said Francis. Francis. My mind went blank for a second. Francis is, or was, one of my closest friends. We met in a yoga class about 3 years ago and hit it off instantly. She became part of our friend's circle, often coming over for dinner, joining us for movie nights. She even helped Mark pick out my birthday present last year. She knew everything about our relationship, the good and the bad. Mark had always been friendly towards her, but in a normal, platonic way, or so I thought. Hearing her name come out of his mouth in that context, during our most vulnerable moment, felt like a physical blow. It was beyond disrespectful. It was gut-wrenching, vile. He immediately tried to backtrack, stammering that he did not say anything, that I must have imagined it. Then he tried claiming he was thinking about a work project involving someone named Francis, a totally unbelievable lie given the context. He got angry, defensive, accusing me of being paranoid and trying to start a fight. But I knew what I heard, and suddenly, all the little oddities from the past few months clicked into place with horrifying clarity. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the faint perfume, his distance, the coldness in bed. It wasn't work stress. It was Francis, my friend Francis. I felt sick to my stomach. I pushed him away and got out of bed, wrapping myself in a robe, shaking. The argument that followed was explosive. I confronted him directly about Francis, about everything I suddenly suspected. He continued to deny it vehemently, resorting to gaslighting, telling me I was crazy, insecure, trying to sabotage our relationship because I was unhappy with myself. He twisted everything back on me. He said things like, "You are hearing things, Chloe, maybe you need to get your ears checked," or "Why are you always looking for problems? We were having a nice moment." It was classic manipulation, trying to make me doubt my own sanity. But the certainty of what I heard, coupled with the sudden alignment of all the red flags, gave me a strange sense of clarity amidst the emotional turmoil. He eventually stormed out of the bedroom, yelling that he could not deal with my accusations and needed some air. He grabbed his keys and left the apartment. I just stood there, numb, tears streaming down my face. The man I loved, the man I had planned my future with, had not only betrayed me but had done so with one of my closest friends. And the utter disrespect of saying her name during sex. It was a level of cruelty I couldn't comprehend. It felt like he wasn't just cheating, he was actively rubbing my nose in it, consciously or subconsciously. After he left, I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. The betrayal felt immense twofold. Mark's infidelity was devastating, but Frances' involvement cut even deeper. This was someone I confided in, someone I trusted implicitly. How could she do this? How long had it been going on? All those times she came over, smiling to my face, offering advice on my relationship issues with Mark, was it all a lie? Was she laughing at me behind my back? The questions swirled in my head, making me feel dizzy and nauseous. I spent the next hour or so in a daze, alternating between crying and feeling numb. Mark didn't come back that night. He sent a single text message around 3 a.m. saying he was staying at his friend Kevin's place because he needed space from my crazy accusations. Seeing that text filled me with a cold rage. Crazy accusations. He was the one who said another woman's name during sex. He was the one who stormed out. The audacity was staggering. That night marked a turning point. The hurt was profound, but beneath it, a resolve began to form. I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't going to let him gaslight me into thinking I was. I deserved the truth. And I decided right then and there, sitting alone in our once shared apartment in the middle of the night, that I was going to get it. No more benefit of the doubt, no more excuses. I needed proof, not just for my own sanity, but because I knew without it, he would continue to deny and manipulate. The next morning I felt strangely calm. Exhausted, yes, but calm. Mark still wasn't home. I called in sick to work, knowing I couldn't possibly function. My first instinct was to check his things, something I had never even considered doing before in our entire relationship. It felt like a violation of privacy, but honestly, his actions felt like a much bigger violation of trust, of our entire life together. He had crossed a line, and so would I. I started with his laptop, which he carelessly left behind. He usually had it password protected, but I knew the password. We had shared it ages ago for convenience. My hands were trembling as I opened it. I went straight for his email and social media accounts. It didn't take long. Buried in his archived emails were messages between him and Frances. Not overtly explicit at first glance. Mostly coded language, inside jokes, plans to meet up disguised as work-related matters or group hangouts that I conveniently wasn't invited to. But the frequency, the tone, the specific times they mentioned meeting, it painted a clear picture. Then I found the social media messages. They were more careless there. Flirtatious exchanges, heart emojis, messages sent late at night talking about how much they missed each other. There were references to specific dates, weekends Mark had claimed he was on work trips or visiting family. It was all there, a digital trail of their affair spanning months, maybe even close to a year. The sheer volume of messages, the depth of their emotional connection revealed in those private chats, it was staggering. They talked about me, sometimes pityingly, sometimes dismissively. Frances would offer Mark advice on how to handle my suspicions, telling him to just reassure me that I was probably just feeling insecure. Reading that, knowing she said those things while sleeping with my boyfriend, made me physically ill. The worst part was finding a hidden folder on his cloud drive. It was cryptically named Project Backup. Inside were photos of him and Frances together, not just innocent selfies but intimate photos. Them kissing, cuddling in hotel rooms, on trips he told me were for work. There was even a picture of them in our apartment, on our couch, taken on a day I was visiting my parents out of town. The violation felt absolute. They hadn't just cheated, they had desecrated our shared space, our life. Seeing those images, proof positive and undeniable, solidified everything. The hurt was still there, sharp and deep, but the rage was now a burning fire. How dare they? How dare both of them betray me like this? I meticulously saved copies of everything. The emails, the messages, the photos. I uploaded them to a secure cloud account only I had access to. I knew I needed this evidence. Not just to confront Mark, but potentially for leverage later. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to just roll over and let them get away with this unscathed. The disrespect, the lies, the calculated betrayal from both my partner and my friend, it demanded consequences. Mark finally came home late that afternoon, acting sullen and self-righteous. He probably expected me to be apologetic, ready to smooth things over after my crazy outburst. He walked in, dropped his keys on the counter and avoided eye contact. He started talking about how we needed to communicate better, how my insecurity was pushing him away. The nerve of this man. I let him talk for a few minutes, listening with a chilling calmness I didn't know I possessed. When he paused, probably waiting for me to break down or apologize, I simply looked at him and said, "I know about you and Francis, Mark. I know everything." His face went pale. The arrogance drained away, replaced by panic. He started to deny it again, stumbling over his words, but the fight had gone out of him. He saw the look in my eyes, the evidence I hadn't even revealed yet, and he knew he was caught. I didn't yell this time. I spoke calmly, coldly. I told him I had seen the messages, the photos. I described specific details, specific dates, specific locations, leaving no room for doubt. I watched him crumble. The denial turned into pathetic excuses. It just happened, he mumbled. It didn't mean anything. We were just having fun. Francis was lonely after her breakup. He tried to minimize it, trivialize the deep betrayal he had inflicted. Then he tried to blame me again. If you hadn't been so distant lately, he started, if you paid more attention to me. If our sex life hadn't become so boring, that was when my calm finally snapped. Boring? I screamed. You think saying another woman's name while you are inside me is boring? You think sneaking around with my supposed best friend behind my back is just fun? You are disgusting, Mark. Absolutely pathetic. I told him to pack his things and get out of my apartment. Technically, we were both on the lease, but I made it clear I wasn't going anywhere, and he was no longer welcome. He tried to argue, to plead, saying we could work through this. He even had the audacity to say he still loved me. I laughed in his face. Love. You do not know the meaning of the word, I told him. You love yourself, and you love the convenience of having someone warm your bed while you screw around. Get out. He finally realized I was serious, that there was no talking his way out of this one. He started throwing clothes into a bag, still trying to justify himself, trying to make me feel guilty. I ignored him, busying myself by gathering his toiletries from the bathroom and dumping them into a trash bag. As he was packing, his phone buzzed incessantly. I glanced at the screen. It was Francis. Message after message popping up. Are you okay? Did you talk to Chloe? Is she still mad? What did you tell her? The desperation in her text was almost comical. I picked up his phone. Mark lunged for it, but I held it away. I read the messages aloud in a mocking tone. Oh, Francis is worried about you, Mark. Should I tell her you got caught? Should I tell her what you called her last night? Mark snatched the phone back, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Don't you dare bring her into this more than she already is, he snarled. I laughed again, a harsh, humorless sound. Oh, she's already in this, Mark. Neck deep. Both of you are. Now get out of my home. He grabbed his bag and stormed towards the door. Before he left, he turned back, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and pathetic pleading. Chloe, please don't do anything stupid. Don't tell anyone. We can keep this between us. Keep it between us. I scoffed. You mean keep your dirty little secret so you and Francis can continue whatever this twisted thing is without consequences? So you can save face? Absolutely not. You blew up my life. You disrespected me in the most profound way possible. You do not get to dictate how I handle the fallout. Now leave before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. Technically not true yet, but the threat worked. He glared at me one last time and slammed the door behind him. The silence that followed was deafening. I sank onto the couch, the one they had used, and finally let myself break down again. But this time the tears were mixed with a sense of liberation. He was gone. The source of the lies, the disrespect, the constant anxiety, he was physically out of my space. It was the first step. Now what to do about Francis? And what about the evidence I had collected? Mark's plea for silence echoed in my ears, but it only strengthened my resolve. They didn't deserve privacy or protection. They deserved exposure. They deserved consequences that matched the magnitude of their betrayal. My revenge wouldn't be petty. It would be precise, clinical, and devastating, just like their actions had been to me. I gave myself the rest of the day to grieve, to process. I ordered takeout, watched mindless television, and let myself feel the pain without judgment. But the next morning I woke up with purpose. It was time to clean house, literally and figuratively. I spent the morning packing up every single thing Mark owned that he'd left behind. Clothes, books, gadgets, mementos from our relationship. I boxed it all up meticulously. I wasn't going to throw it out or destroy it. That felt too chaotic. I would arrange for him to pick it up later, cleanly and efficiently. Then I turned my attention to Francis. I debated confronting her directly, but honestly, what was the point? She had already shown her true colors. Hearing more lies or justifications wouldn't help me heal. Instead, I decided on a different approach. Frances worked in marketing, a field where reputation is crucial. She presented herself as this ethical, empowering woman online and in her professional network. It was all a facade, obviously. Among the evidence I found on Mark's cloud drive were not just photos, but also some documents. It seemed Mark, who worked in finance, had been helping Frances fudge some numbers on freelance projects she was doing on the side, likely to avoid declaring the full income. He'd also used his company credit card for some of their hotel stays, disguising them as business expenses. It was sloppy, arrogant, and incredibly incriminating for both of them. Mark had essentially documented his own misuse of company funds and implicated Frances in potential tax evasion. Idiots. I considered my options carefully. Going to the police about the potential tax issue felt complicated and might drag me into something messy. But Mark's misuse of company funds, that was clear-cut. His company had a strict ethics policy and a whistleblower hotline, and Frances carefully curated professional image. That was vulnerable too. I decided to act methodically. First, Mark. I compiled the relevant evidence. The hotel receipts charged to his corporate card, cross-referenced with the dates of their intimate photos and messages confirming they were personal rendezvous, not business trips. I created a detailed, anonymous email account. I wrote a concise, professional email outlining the misuse of company funds, attaching the evidence, and sent it directly to the head of HR and the internal audit department at Mark's company. I made sure my digital trail was clean, using a VPN and the anonymous email. I didn't state my identity or the full context of the affair, just presented the facts about the financial misconduct. Let them investigate and draw their own conclusions about his character. Next, Frances. This required a slightly different touch. She was part of a large online community for female entrepreneurs in our city, where she often posted advice and presented herself as a mentor. She also had a significant other, a nice guy named David whom she had been with for about 2 years. He seemed completely oblivious. Part of me felt sorry for him, caught in the crossfire. But he deserved to know who he was really with. I found David's social media profile easily enough through Frances' tagged photos. Again, using an anonymous account, I sent him a message. I kept it brief and factual. I'm writing to you because I believe you deserve to know the truth about your partner, Frances. She has been involved in a long-term affair with my now ex-boyfriend, Mark. I have proof, including photos and messages, confirming this has been happening for nearly a year. I attached a couple of the less graphic but undeniably intimate photos of Mark and Frances together, along with screenshots of messages where they discussed deceiving both me and David. I ended the message by saying, I am truly sorry to be the bearer of this news, but I believe honesty is crucial. What you do with this information is up to you. I didn't want to dictate his reaction, just give him the truth they had denied him. Finally, I dealt with the apartment. I contacted the landlord, explained that my partner had moved out unexpectedly, and inquired about the process of removing him from the lease. Thankfully, the landlord was understanding, especially when I hinted at volatility without going into sordid details. Mark would have to sign off, but if he refused, there were legal steps I could take. A few days later, I contacted Mark via email, using my normal account this time. I told him his belongings were boxed up and ready for collection. I gave him a specific 2-hour window on the upcoming weekend when he could come get them, instructing him to bring a friend, preferably Kevin, who likely knew about the affair anyway, and stating I would not be present but my own friend Ashley would be there to supervise. I made it clear this was non-negotiable, and any deviation would result in his belongings being disposed of. He replied curtly, confirming he and Kevin would be there. The day Mark was due to pick up his stuff, Ashley came over. She had been my rock through this whole ordeal, furious on my behalf but also incredibly supportive. We went out for brunch while Mark and Kevin did the walk of shame, collecting his boxes under Ashley's watchful eye. Ashley texted me later saying it was awkward but uneventful. Mark apparently looked miserable, Kevin just looked uncomfortable. Good. The fallout from my anonymous tips started rolling in about a week later. I heard through the grapevine, our city isn't that big, and gossip travels fast, that Mark was suddenly fired from his job. The official reason wasn't disclosed, but financial irregularities and breach of company ethics policy were the strong rumors. Losing his high-paying finance job was a significant blow, both financially and reputationally. Serves him right. Using company money to fund his affair was greedy and stupid, and he paid the price. As for Frances, things got messy publicly. David apparently confronted her and it exploded. They broke up very loudly. David, understandably hurt and angry, wasn't discreet. He told their mutual friends what Frances had done. Her carefully crafted image imploded almost overnight. People in her professional network started distancing themselves. Clients paused projects. The hypocrisy of her empowering woman persona versus her actions was too stark. I heard she basically went underground, deactivating some social media. I didn't take pleasure in her pain exactly, but I felt a sense of grim satisfaction that the truth was out, and she couldn't hide behind her lies anymore. She and Mark had made their bed. Removing Mark from the lease was straightforward after he lost his job. He couldn't afford to fight it and likely just wanted to disappear. He signed the papers without protest. It's been a few months now since everything imploded. Getting over the betrayal is a process, and I'm definitely still healing. I started therapy, which has been incredibly helpful in processing the anger, the hurt, and the feelings of stupidity for not seeing the signs sooner. I have leaned heavily on my true friends, like Ashley and my family. I've redecorated the apartment, reclaiming the space as my own. It finally feels like home again, not a place tainted by betrayal. Mark has apparently moved back in with his parents. Frances is keeping a low profile. I blocked both of them on everything immediately after the confrontation and haven't heard from them directly since, which is exactly how I want it. I know some people might think sending those anonymous tips was vindictive or going too far. Part of me wrestled with that initially. But then I remembered Mark's disgusting comment during our last intimate moment, the calculated lies, the manipulation, the sheer disrespect from both him and Frances. My actions weren't just about revenge, they were about consequences. They were about exposing the truth they tried so hard to conceal. They faced the repercussions of their own choices, facilitated by the evidence they carelessly left behind. It felt like justice, earned and delivered. I feel lighter now, free from the weight of his secrets and lies. I am focusing on myself, rebuilding my trust in my own judgment, and looking forward to a future where I am valued and respected. So Reddit, here is the question. Was I the asshole for exposing Mark's financial misconduct to his employer and Frances' affair to her partner? Did I go too far in seeking consequences for their betrayal, especially after the profound disrespect Mark showed me? Or was it justified given the circumstances? What would you have done? Update 1. Wow, okay. My phone has been absolutely blowing up since I posted this yesterday. Thank you all so much for the overwhelming support and validation. Reading your comments has been incredibly affirming. It seems the vast consensus is that I was definitely not the asshole, and that Mark and Frances got exactly what they deserved. Many of you shared similar stories, and my heart goes out to anyone who has experienced this kind of betrayal. It truly sucks. To answer a few common questions, yes, I am absolutely sure Mark said Frances' name. It wasn't mumbled incoherently. It was clear as day, and his reaction confirmed it. That moment was the catalyst, the thing that shattered the illusion. Also, many asked if I regret sending the tips. Honestly, not one bit. As many of you pointed out, I didn't lie or fabricate anything. I simply presented the truth that they created through their own actions. Mark committed fraud against his company. Frances lied and cheated on David while pretending to be my friend. Their downfall was a direct consequence of their choices, not my malice. Letting them continue consequence-free felt like enabling their behavior and disrespecting myself further. Someone asked if Kevin, Mark's friend who helped him move, knew about the affair. Ashley confirmed Kevin looked super uncomfortable during the pickup and avoided eye contact. I suspect Mark confided in him, and Kevin probably felt caught in the middle but chose loyalty to Mark. I haven't spoken to Kevin since, and don't plan to. His association with Mark taints him by default in my eyes right now. Frances did try to reach out indirectly through a mutual acquaintance a few weeks ago, apparently wanting to explain or apologize. I shut that down immediately. There is nothing she could possibly say that would excuse her behavior. Her actions spoke volumes, and I have zero interest in her excuses. Forgiveness might come someday, far down the road, but reconciliation is absolutely off the table. Friendship requires trust, and she obliterated that. My therapy is going well. We are working through the trust issues this whole mess created, not just with romantic partners but also with friendships. It's a process, but I feel stronger and more self-aware. Reclaiming my apartment has been huge too. New paint, new furniture arrangement, it feels like mine now. Thank you again, Reddit. Your support means more than you know. It feels good not to feel alone in this. Update 2. Hello again, everyone. It's been another couple of months since my last update, and things have continued to progress positively for me, thankfully. I wanted to share a final update as so many of you were invested and offered such great advice and support. Life is surprisingly good. Work is going well, I've reconnected with hobbies I neglected while I was with Mark, and my friendships, the real ones, feel stronger than ever. Ashley remains my absolute champion. The therapy continues to be beneficial, helping me establish healthier boundaries and recognize red flags sooner, skills I unfortunately needed to learn the hard way. Now for the juicy bits you are probably wondering about. Mark is apparently still unemployed and living with his parents. The word in finance circles is that he's essentially blacklisted due to the nature of his dismissal. Financial misconduct is a career killer in that industry, as it should be. He tried reaching out to me once via a new email address about a month ago, not apologizing, but asking if I could find it in my heart to help him clear his name, suggesting I tell his former company I made a mistake or misunderstood the expenses. The audacity! I didn't even dignify that with a response, blocked immediately. He clearly still doesn't grasp the concept of accountability. His problems are entirely of his own making. Frances is still keeping a very low profile. I heard she moved to a different city, likely trying to escape the fallout and rebuild her life elsewhere. I genuinely hope she learns from this and treats people better in the future, but honestly, she's not my concern anymore. David, her ex, actually sent me a brief message on social media thanking me for telling him the truth. He said it was devastating, but ultimately allowed him to get out of a relationship built on lies. We wished each other well. That felt like good closure on that part of the saga. The best part, I feel genuinely happy and optimistic. The betrayal was agonizing, one of the worst experiences of my life. But coming out the other side, realizing my own strength, and shedding the dead weight of that toxic relationship has been incredibly empowering. Mark's disrespect, especially that awful comment during intimacy, was a twisted kind of gift. It shocked me awake and forced me to confront the reality I had been subconsciously ignoring. It led me to uncover the truth and ultimately liberate myself. The revenge, as some called it, feels less like revenge now and more like simply ensuring the scales were balanced. They chose to act without integrity, and they faced the natural consequences. My role was merely to lift the curtain they were hiding behind. I sleep soundly at night knowing I stood up for myself and refused to be a victim of their deceit. So, Reddit, thank you one last time. You helped me see clearly that my actions were justified and necessary for my own healing and closure. I'm closing this chapter and looking forward to writing a much better next one, filled with people who actually respect and value me. For anyone going through something similar, trust your gut, gather your proof, prioritize your well-being, and don't be afraid to ensure that those who hurt you face the consequences of their actions. You deserve better. Am I wrong for feeling completely liberated and unapologetic about how things turned out for Mark and Frances? Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.